Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
We're going to give it a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10, to make sure everyone to get entered into the room, and then we'll start our colorful conversation. So until then, we will play a little bit of background music, and then just enjoy. Are we muted?
If you manage a team, you have to try Monday.com. Monday.com is a platform to track every...
Oh, wait, I'm just here.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sharon Thompson, and this is Rebecca Gibbs. We're Healthy Denver, Inc. We want to welcome everybody. We want to thank Good Business Colorado for sponsoring this event, and we want to make sure we thank our incredible list of panelists. We're really excited to hear what you guys have to say. Healthy Denver, Inc. is building health equity in the community, and by using our platform and having this conversation, we're helping to move that conversation along. And we believe that that's one of the ways that we come up with solutions as a community. Is first we have to have a communication, have conversations to communicate about what's going on and figure out how to solve things from there. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amara Martin. I'm sorry.
Before introductions, as Sharon says, thank you. We also, if there's a chat room, if you guys want to put any questions, please wait till after the chat with each person. We're just having a conversation, as Sharon said, about equity in the community. So it's nothing too in-depth, just conversation. However, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat room. At the end of the event, we will go do questions and answers. So the total event is going to be about an hour and a half long. We'll try to keep it to that. We have an extra 30 minutes if you guys want to stay on, or if you folks want to stay on and have conversation after. Yes, we can. However, we're just going to start the conversation now. So thank you.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amara Martin. Amara is the Executive Director for Dress for Success. Rebecca and I have the pleasure of knowing Amara personally. We've been working with Dress for Success and helping fulfill their health and wellness at their organization. And Amara, you do a much better job than I do at this. So I'm going to introduce Amara Martin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the organization, and just, anything cool about you.
Absolutely. So today is a really wonderful day. 13 years ago, tomorrow, I decided to step into the doors of Dress for Success Denver. I came in as a volunteer because I have a passion for fashion and because I wanted to do something in my community. I come from the fashion industry, and so I thought it would be wonderful for me to volunteer as a personal stylist. Well, I quickly fell in love with it and discovered that Dress for Success is so much more than clothes, that we are helping women alter the direction of their lives, that we are increasing the diversity, inclusion, and racial equity of the workplace by training a diverse group of women and all of those who gender identify as female to go into the workplace and to have opportunities that they may have never had and to have greater success.
Oh, Thank you.
I love that, and we've been around enough to see some of your clients go through your program and some of the progress. You've actually helped us as well.
Yes.
Dress for success. But we really love what you do for our community, and the impact that you have on women, and how you empower women and support the community. So that speaks volumes, and that's just incredible work that you do. We want to also introduce, we have Meryl Franklin.
Yeah, so how we're going to do it is basically we're going to introduce all the panelists at first, because it's going to be more of a conversation versus question and answer. We are going to ask the question, but it's going to be a conversation about the question.
So we'll go ahead and introduce the other two panelists that we have. We have Shanae Adams and Meryl Franklin.
So Meryl, one of them going to introduce herself.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Are you guys on the line? There's Meryl. So Meryl is the director of youth services at the Center on Colfax, LGBTQ Center on Colfax. Is that right, Meryl? So we've known Meryl for a couple of years. We've actually gone down and volunteered at the center with Meryl, and she does some really good work with our youth. And then we have Shanae Adams, who's a sex education specialist, and she is a teletherapist. Is that right, Shanae? So she does a lot of really good work in the community as well. So those are our three panelists tonight. So we're going to go ahead and open the conversation up. And I believe Rebecca might have some questions. Is that right?
Yes, I would like to ask, since we asked Amara a little bit about herself, Meryl, tell us a little bit about you, what you do at the GLBT Center, and something cool about you as well.
Sure. So, as Rebecca and Sharon said, I am the Director of Youth Services. And there is one youth program at the Center on Colfax, and that is Rainbow Alley. And so that is a program for youth ages 11 to 21. Pre-COVID, we would have a whole bunch of support groups and basically like a drop-in time where folks can come in and just decompress from the world. And so because of COVID, we've had to move everything virtually. So we have created a virtual space for youth to feel safe at this time. We are still working on our programming as COVID is making things really slow.
Right.
Yeah. So that's basically what I do. I work with LGBTQ identified youth mostly. We do accept allies into our program as well.
And something cool about yourself.
Oh, goodness. I mean, there's so many new things. I have a puppy right below me.
Wow. Congratulations.
So
And he's a cute puppy too.
Yeah, she's really cute.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Meryl. Shanae, introduce yourself. Tell us about your business and something new or cool about yourself.
Sure. My name is Shanae Adams. I'm a sexuality professional, which basically means I teach different workshops about topics under the umbrella of sexuality. I've been doing this work for going on 11 years now, taught both internationally and domestically in wherever people will let me come and teach. And now I'm doing homeschool, sex-positive, comprehensive sex education. So that is rolling on its way out. I am also a mental health clinician. I own a private practice called My Therapeutic Services. My is spelled MAI. It stands for Manifest, Affirm, and Intent, which are the pillars of my therapy service. I really work to create an intentional space for healing for my clients on every step of the way and empower them or remind them of their power to manifest realities in which they will be able to thrive. And I also own a sex positive collaborative here in Denver called the Chrysalis House. which is basically a community resource center. We have a food pantry and a clothing pantry resources drive that we host out on occasion. Before COVID, we were doing maybe like 6 to 7 events a month. Now we do a lot of our programming online. We do have an event coming up this Saturday, Cheeseman Park. It's called Chrysalis Park. So that way people can come and be in community with COVID precautions, of course. But yeah, that's basically me. I think an interesting fact about me is that I do a lot of things, but I am a Taurus, so I will take a nap.
We know you will take a nap. Thank you so much, Shanae Adams. Fun fact, we know all these individuals, obviously outside of this panel. We're personal friends with each and every one of them, and they're cool people to be around. Fashion, cool napper, and just, Meryl, just cool. Awesome. So how, as we said, we just ask one question, make it a conversation piece between the three ladies. We'll keep it timed according to the conversation, and you go from there. So first question I do want to ask, what's that noise? Oh, I'm sorry. So it's about racism. So how have you managed racism to get where you are today? So either one of you could jump in and just, as I said, conversation.
Here, I'll jump in first. I would say one of the ways that I have managed racism is that I identify it, but I transcend and move past it. So one of the things that I do is I don't automatically say if somebody is discriminatory or if somebody makes a comment, that person is a racist, that person is against me. It's not my job to point out that person. I truly believe that as an individual, it is my job to spread love. That's why I'm here. I spread love, Dress for Success. We spread love amongst women. And as you spread love, you're going to come up against all kinds of different issues. And rather than pointing out that person, getting in that person's face, being aggressive, that's not how I combat it. I know that I am somebody's being racist against me, but I just move past it. I use myself as an example of how my behavior might be able to alter how they see people of my race, how they see women, how they see all these individuals. And so if I can adjust my behavior to not be aggressive or combative with them, maybe I can change their mind.
I agree with that because it works for me the same way. Look at Shanae has something that she wants to say real fast.
I saw a big smile pop on your face. I think I heard the love part and I saw that smile. Go ahead.
Sure. I think I'm just trying to chew on the question of how to manage racism, because that word to me implies that racism is somehow my problem, which it's not. So therefore, it's not my responsibility to mitigate it or to show up in spaces differently or to act differently, because it's not my problem. The impacts, the effects of racism are my issue. If someone, wants to not give me a job, or if someone wants to not let me into a space, or if it impacts my ability to move through the world, sure, that's my problem. But the fact that the power exists and that people who are empowered in the system of racism can utilize that power doesn't have anything to do with me. So I think that's kind of like my initial jump off that I was chewing on there. I think that one thing that I do intentionally is I spend a lot of time in white spaces professionally, both as a sexuality educator and as a clinician and as an entrepreneur who works in the realm of sex. So to mitigate my own mental health and keep myself good, I don't spend time in white spaces personally. I'm very concise, or very, I don't know what the word is that my brain is looking for, very intentional about the spaces that I find myself in and the energies that I put out, because I know that these systems exist, and I know that you gonna get what you gonna get, and how you respond to it is not my problem. So I think that the concept of trying to like manage racism feels like it's not my job.
Okay.
How about you, Meryl?
Sorry, my device is being weird. I just want to second everything that Shanae said, because that's what I was thinking.
She has a nice way of articulating it, doesn't she?
Yes.
I love Nate, and that's one of the things I love about her. She's just unapologetically who she is. And I have to say, I don't think I've said that to her before, but that's one of the things I love about you. And it makes me feel stronger and more empowered to be who I am in my space, and I do appreciate that about you.
Love you too, boo.
I also have spent a lot of my life, not even just my professional life, but a lot of my personal life in white spaces. And honestly, I'm really tired. So I have to be very careful as to who I'm exposing myself to outside of work. And so, making that space for myself and for my own mental health, honestly, therapy is also helpful, because my goodness, I have experienced a lot of racial trauma myself. And so I'm trying to learn to manage that. So everything that Shanae said, plus therapy.
Well, I could agree on both sides, because with Amara, like, if I show kind-hearted happiness, like, you have no other choice but to treat me the same way, regardless if you're racist or not. However, it's not your job to help someone treat you any better than they want to treat you. But you're in the middle of that space, and I'm happy-go-lucky. I love everyone who I have in my circle. But the people I have in my circle, they understand me and love me for me. So that's how I feel about that as well too.
You want to know how I feel about it?
Sure.
I have a really interesting history when it comes to racism. Wow. I tear a little bit more on the side of Amara, really, really in the middle. I had some trauma in my life on the Black side of my family, and it was the white people that really, the white savior piece really worked for me. So I had some people in my corner that really helped me out when my family wasn't there for me, and it happened to be white people. So I feel very down the line when it comes to right down the middle when it comes to color. I don't see color. I see people with my heart. And I think it depends on who you are, and if you're open to being to loving, and if you're coming from a loving place, then that's what's recognized. And I think that's really, for me, what I see is more of the heart. And I have we have two white boys too, so I can't be too racist. So
we have three sons, two of them white, well, Hispanic, Indian, and white, and the other one is Black. So
they present as white, but it's difficult. That's a difficult field to navigate. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I see with my heart, and it really depends on whether you're open to being loved, and whether you're presenting love or not is really what I see.
Yeah, I like that. How do you guys feel about those answers? Yeah? Okay. It's so quiet in the room. However, so we can either address this question now with some question, if you have any questions about it, or we can still wait till the end of the conversation. Deborah Brown of Good Business Colorado is helping me so kindly about today. And Deborah, would you mind letting me know if there's any questions in the chat room that's as of now for anything so far?
Not yet.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I'll go to the next question. And Shanae, you mentioned you work in the space of predominantly white people. and you live in a space predominantly with Black people, which we definitely know that for sure. Why do you feel, how does that feel to you while like working in that space?
How does it feel to work in predominantly white spaces?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't do it no more. This is why I own 3 businesses. And one of the main motivations for, getting out of, I was going to say corporate, but I didn't really work for corporate. Like I've had government jobs. I've had nonprofit jobs. I've had, it's a nonprofit. So community-based organizations, things in that regard. But, just the fields in which I participate, mental health, sex education, are fields that are very white. Like the majority of professions in the country are going to be very white, especially, with this new endeavor that I'm in as a mental health clinician. Black therapists make up about 10% of all therapists. So it is a very white profession. When I go to a conference, I'm lucky if I see another POC in session with me. I'm lucky if there's a mirror in there so I can see me, So when we talk about it, I exist in these very predominantly white spaces because they're very predominantly white fields. And it has to do a lot with the privilege and the power that comes with being white in America and being able to be the gatekeepers to these professions and really having to find a seat, build a table. So that way, your voice is included and you're in the room. And my experience of that has been, I was born and raised in Colorado, which is a predominantly white state. It's a predominantly white, people think to be very liberal, but actually is not very liberal state. So there's a lot of just microaggressions and racial trauma that I've experienced being in Colorado. I am also nomadic. So I have lived in several other states. I lived in Nebraska for a good minute, and Nebraska is an extremely segregated state. I lived in Omaha, and Omaha is extremely segregated. And I think that worked out really well for me as a nomad and as a person who was just integrating into that city because all the Black people were over there. I didn't have to wonder where the Black-owned businesses were, where the Black arts were. They were all over there in their little segregated corner. All the Latinos were over there in their segregated corner. And outside of those segregated corners, it was white. And that, unfortunately, like being a person in this country, that is what it is. Even kind of, I lived abroad in Rwanda, and I worked in Rwanda for almost 2 years. And while it wasn't white per se, whiteness was deitized. And it was very much in those spaces, I found myself having to defend my Americanness because as a Black person in this African country, I was automatically assumed to be African, and really having, that existentialist moment of the realization that I will never be African enough to be African or American enough to be American, and just existing in this limbo that is to be a queer Black femme in the world, in all honesty. So knowing that, I have to put myself into certain spaces, into certain positions to be able to grow in my career and to be able to get the financial and societal capital needed to be able to do the work that I want to do. I keep that in mind in where I spend my time personally and who the energies that I allow to enter into my environment and who I spend intimate time with and how I show up and articulate myself in those spaces. I think what's coming to mind right there is like code switching, which is something that I refuse to do because
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. So it's like, and like I say all of this with the realization of a person who, like Meryl said, is very tired and is very kind of cognizant of myself and my experiences and the places that I'm trying to go, and keeping in mind that there's these bubbles that exist that I can choose to show up, with the respectability politics in, and I can choose to move and navigate in a certain way that's just going to be energetically draining for me. And given how I want to show up in my community and the work that I want to do for my communities, I have to take care of myself first. I have to show up in a way that feels positive and authentic for me, so that way I can hold space and show up for my community in the ways in which they are asking for me to show up.
Like that.
I love that. That's one of the things that we really advocate for, is to take care of yourself first. Make sure you put your oxygen mask on first. So that's really important.
You can't help anyone else if you can't help yourself. And if you feel a certain way about society, then you helping the next person is not going to help them get out of the situation that they're in. So, Amara. So, same question for you. In your realm of what you do, because you're the director of Dress Success, and you hold a high ranking in that organization. With what you do, how do you feel being in that environment?
I would say in the environment, it's different when I first started versus where we are today. When I had first started as a volunteer, I think I was the only person of color, period, in the organization. Within the board, within the staff, within the volunteers, I was the only one. And not only was I the only person of color, I was also in my 20s when I started volunteering. So I was young, I was very, very misplaced. And I think that as an organization, we started off with a lot of women who really had a passion for helping people. They may not necessarily come from that same background, but they come from a place of wanting to volunteer and wanting to help. And so I almost became as, well, let me give you some ideas on how to help. And I saw the value of that from the people that I was working for, but also the women that I was working with. I was able to explain to them, show them, and they would teach me. And I almost became like a conduit. You tell me what you need, I tell them what you need, so that we can go ahead and get things accomplished. And then as I continued to go up in the ranks, so I went into program coordination and started working directly with women, started doing a lot of work in halfway houses and in prison systems, and then started having to go between both worlds and really figuring out how to do that. But while keeping my mission, what is my mission? What am I here for? And I just go back to that love thing. That is really what I'm about. It is difficult for me to not come from a place of love, to not value every single person's experience. My experience is not like your experience. I'm also born and raised in Denver, grew up in Montbello, and went to school in Cherry Hills Village, and went to school in Cherry Hills Village forever, my entire life, and then went to a private university in Indiana, which I'm convinced is one of the most racist places I've ever seen in my life. And through those experiences, that's what brought me to this point of, you know what, I'm just gonna love people. Everybody and everybody's experience, I'm just gonna be this, that's who I am, that is what I'm gonna do. Come from that place of kindness, come from that place of love. And so now in the position that I'm in, I have been able to bring in people. So I have made it a mission to hire women who have come through our program, women that we have served, women who are at all different levels. Some have education, some don't. Everybody, we are 100% ethnically diverse, which is a big deal to me. That we have everybody represented, we have every voice, so that we can take every experience to really create an environment, an atmosphere, and programs that are going to serve a broad range of people.
And that's the only way you kind of really help is by, because you need a little bit of everyone's input, not necessarily opinion, but input to figure something out, to help it just balance a little bit. It's never going to be balanced. Shanae face is like, whatever. It's never going to be balanced. However, it's a way to move forward.
The spice of life.
Yes, move forward that's the only way you can do it. So, yes, Meryl, darling. Meryl Sunshine. So that's a nickname of hers. Basically same question for you. Moving from a totally different state to moving to Colorado to work at a GLBT center was definitely a big move for you, and it was an awesome move. But how does that work out for you? Granted, the center has a little bit, but yeah, 2%.
Oh God. Yeah, no, it's not very diverse at all. So basically what these two were alluding to is that I am new to Colorado. I'm originally from New York City. I've lived a whole bunch of other places, North Carolina, Boston, and abroad a little bit. So I've lived in a lot of different places and a lot of different spaces. And, you know, coming from New York City, which, you know, I lived in a Caribbean neighborhood. So I was surrounded by Black folk. Coming out here was interesting. But I chose to come out here just because I need more nature and less stress. That's the main reason. I was worried about the fact that it's not very diverse around here. But I moved anyway. And yeah, I mean, I'm generally exhausted from working with folks who do not share any of the same experiences as I have. The center has 2 other Black people who work there, and that's it. And so that can be really challenging because a lot of things can get overlooked, not intentionally, but because
that representation is just not there.
Yeah, it's just there. And that can make things very tough and tiring because explaining things all the time is a lot. So, yeah.
Well, that's definitely understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan? Hey, Jordan. Jordan is also part of GBC. He's the main guy, one of the main guys. Well, one of the only guys within the 3 main individuals for GBC. So Jordan is also part of Good Business Colorado. All right. So without further ado, I'll go to another question and just continue basically questioning and just having a conversation about it. So, what advice would you have for people of color when facing racism? Whoever want to jump in first could start. Well, I could start. So I always, like, when facing racism, well, I can't really speak too much on facing racism because I'm from Brooklyn myself and I'm from the Caribbean. Moving to Colorado 10 years ago was a big drastic change for myself. However, I see people for people, not for color. I have fun with whomever. Once we enjoy each other's company, we connect, we're going to have fun. So I've been here 10 years and still love it. And I've met a whole lot of people of color, of different race, different ethnicity, background, Caribbean folks. Like I have different groups of friends that I have, and I love the fact that I stayed, I'm still living here. However, I've been maybe one time in my life, which was recently, I think maybe about a year ago, I faced racism for the first time. I was like, oh, Shanae, that's how it feels? I'm like, that's not cool. And it was over a song, a simple song. And it's just the verbiage the guy used made the room awkward. And we all questioned it. Everyone who in the room was questioning the verbiage. And, you know, it was like there's a racist comment on a song. And it was crazy. So basically the song was
Women, Whites, and Wine.
Right. So the question was, and we were supposed to repeat that part, like, you know, the whole rooms will repeat that, the chorus part. And we said, okay, cool, no problem. So we said it the first time and the room got quiet. We was like, huh. So we all, so it wasn't even us, an Asian guy who was in the room. He's like, so what do you mean by whites? And his response was cocaine. However, back in the day when that song came out, that's not what they call cocaine. We looked it up to make sure, but it was just really uncomfortable and we got out of there really fast. And that was recently, about a year ago, first time in my life. So, you know, I can't really speak on it, but Sharon, on the other hand.
I'm from the South, so she was that was her virgin first time experience with racism. I thought it was really cute. She probably didn't think it was too cute, but that was like really minuscule on the radar. But yeah, that was an interesting scenario. But Amara said something in one of our last conversations. I think when you were with your basketball team.
Volleyball.
Volleyball team, that's right. And that I'll let you talk about it. But I think that was classic.
Yes, volleyball in Mississippi. actually.
Oh my God.
My college competed against a university in Mississippi, and we went there, had our game, and we were going to Cracker Barrel. And this is the first time I've ever seen a Cracker Barrel.
You were just asking for it.
Into the Cracker Barrel, there were some men sitting in some chairs outside of this little shopping area. I don't know if you can call it a shopping area. I'm sorry, I'm a Denver girl. I've never seen anything like that. And he just he made this incredibly racist comment, just really singled me out, pointed me out, racist comment to me, pointing at me. And I had never seen this before. I think I was 18 years old, maybe 19 years old. It blew my mind. I had never experienced such blatant racism. And I remember kind of standing there, and I actually froze and just kind of stood there wide-eyed, like, what am I supposed to do? And my teammates, who were all white, actually grabbed me and just said, let's go in. Let's go. We're gonna just keep moving. And I came in, and it was kind of upsetting, and I had to think about it. And then later on, I would have more of those experiences, some of them blatant, some of them very underhanded, kind of underhanded, dirty, while working. I told you I come from the fashion industry. So while working a fashion shoot or going someplace for an audition, you'll have kind of an underhanded comment that is made about your race or your size or your ethnic background or your whatever. And I kept the same philosophy of I just keep moving. And this is where I agree with both Shanae and Meryl. That is not my concern, how you feel about me. And so I just keep moving. And when women are coming through our programs, through our organization, and they talk about things that are happening, of course, if these things are happening in your business and you want to get them documented, you want to make sure that you use whatever resources you have to defend yourself. But ultimately, as an individual, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to make sure that you can just keep moving. If you are at that job to work, just keep working. If you are out somewhere with your family, with your friends, keep moving. Really manage yourself and try to manage your emotions. I'm definitely not one that agrees with just going right back at somebody. If somebody's coming at me, I don't agree with going right back at them. That's different personalities. I just think anger begets more anger. And so I'm like, keep going and pay it no mind, just keep moving. And then if you need to talk to somebody, if you need to try to work it out, if you want to try to talk to that person, great. But you really need to do some self-care on that one.
I agree with that. Because you come with anger, all it's going to do, it never solves anything. You still have to calm down, think about the situation to even come to a realistic answer, because anger does not, it leads to more anger and shooting and killing and knees on the neck and unnecessary stuff.
Well, we're ruled by love or fear, so it's got to be coming from one of those two places. So if somebody's expressing hate, it's because of usually either they were raised that way or there's some fear there of not knowing, or fear of another culture that they're it's like when another animal sees another animal. If you don't know what that one, the other one's going to do. And I think that because the patriarchy is so homogenized and we're so marginalized, that we haven't had those interactions, and we haven't had the communication, and we haven't had the opportunities to either bump into somebody of color or really just iron out or hash out the issues that we have in the country. But I think conversation is a really good way to start.
Yes. Miss Franklin, since you're off mute.
I forgot my thought at the moment. But I guess I have like some sort of kind of visceral reaction to what was being discussed, if I'm being very honest. I mean, so, okay, I'm going to put this in context. So being Black, and I'm not just Black, I'm also queer, I am non-binary, I have a whole slew of different identities that put me at risk in various ways. But the thing is that people have reactions to having been oppressed for a long time. And so I don't necessarily think it's fair to blame folks who are just trying to survive, because there's a reason why that's happening. I know for me, as someone who has had extensive amount of racial trauma, that it did get to a point where I had a more aggressive reaction to smaller things, things that a lot of people wouldn't think would cause a reaction like that. And I just, it's not that specific thing. It's all of the buildup. It's all of that, and not to mention the intergenerational component to that as well. So I just felt like I needed to voice that. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. That's what this is, a safe space to communicate and express how you feel and what you think.
Yes.
Cool. If I can actually jump on to what Meryl has said, I agree in a lot of the same ways. I'm also having a very visceral reaction to the phrase of "I don't see color" being thrown around a whole lot, because that is one of Mass's tools. And that is, you know, the internalization of that tool, and maybe even it's an internalization of that tool, which is not going to seek to move us or get us anywhere, because you cannot dismantle Mass's house with Mass's tools. I see color. And when you tell me that you don't see my color, that tells me that you're missing a very vital part of my identity and a vital part of my experience and how I perceive the world and how the world perceives me. The same as Meryl, I have multiple intersecting identities, multiple intersecting minority identities in being a queer person, in being a femme of center, or a femme appearing person, being a mask of center person, being a person who works in the field of sex and sexuality, having to navigate all of these different identities. I don't get to just show up in the world one day and just be a femme. I don't get to show up in the world one day and just be Black. And when you're telling me that you're missing a very vital part of my identity, if that's not something that you're perceiving or experiencing or allowing to provide some context as to what my perception may be, that makes it super difficult for me to see like you are fully seeing me and can speak to my reality and to my experience. Also holding in that same account that everybody has experiences, those experiences are different because of our intersecting identities. We can share a multitude of the same identities, and that doesn't mean that we're going to perceive or experience things the same way that another person who shares our identities is going to perceive or experience something. So in terms of mitigating, or what advice I would give to a person of color in terms of dealing with racism, is to tell them that racism exists, that it is not their fault, that it is not their problem, that it then becomes an additional hurdle on top of all of the other hurdles that we as Black people, or we as femme people, or we as queer people now need to overcome in order to achieve whatever goal it is, and in order to break down those gatekeeping barriers that exist in these societal systems that were designed not to serve us and not to allow us or to grant us access. I think there becomes this kind of pedology, or putting someone up on a pedestal that exists when you see a person of color or a person with a minority identity who is out in the world and thriving and surviving, or has accomplished some kind of goal, because there's this idea that they have transcended race, or they have transcended racism, and we cannot transcend race or racism. Race is a social construct that impacts how we move through society. The fact that it is a social construct means at the very basis of the point that it does not exist. But society has bought into this construct, and therefore now it is something that we have to origami with and grapple with in order to thrive and live our lives. So my main advice for POC who live in society, because society is inherently racist, society is designed to push those to push white people to the forefront and to hold those with minority intersecting identities back. And not only is society designed to hold people back, but it is designed to indoctrinate you into these ideas, so that way you start to perpetuate them, so that way later generations pick them up as well, because society also has a mechanism that tells the people to attack people who don't fall in line with what society has deemed to be the appropriate response or deemed the appropriate thing to do. And that's where concepts like code switching and respectability politics come up. That's where the question of, should I lock my hair or should I wear my fro comes up. That's where the question of, am I too dark to exist in this space? Am I too queer to exist in this space? Am I too non-binary to exist in this space comes up. And the more that we continue to digest those tools that massa has set out for us, that society has set out for us, that society has indoctrinated us to be able to live and thrive through, thinking that this is how you do it, this is how you move through the world, this is how you be the good model minority, this is how you get to be in the house, this is how you don't get to be a field nigga. Like, the more that we continue to consume this and push this out, the more difficult it is going to be for us with these intersecting identities to create a reality in which we can thrive without fear of violence, and whether that violence is virtual violence, microaggression violence, or even physical in your face violence that is spurring a lot of movements that have going on today. So all that to say, I agree with Meryl.
I love it. You gotta give me a minute.
We like to have fun. This is awesome. We actually have a question in the chat. Deborah, would you mind reading that while we catch our breath from Shanae's?
Yeah. Thank you. And and Jordan's question is, what can businesses and industry leaders do to create environments where people don't feel the need to code switch?
So can you repeat it one more time just in case, please?
You bet. So what can businesses and industry leaders do where people don't feel the need to code switch?
Okay. Did you ladies catch that?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can make space, or I can take space.
Go ahead.
Sure. So the first thing that kind of comes to mind is if like this concept of code switching comes from respectability politics, comes from this idea that you have to appear and act and behave in a way that is respectable or suited towards, how you're supposed to behave in a business, at a job, in your career. And the fact of the matter is, respectability politics is rooted in whiteness, even in the beauty standards of how you're supposed to wear your hair, how you're supposed to do your makeup, even in clothing standards about what it looks like to be a business professional. What do business people wear? Do they wear suits and ties, or can they wear Givenchy sweatsuits and Jordans? Like, what does it mean to be a business professional? So the very first thing that I would say is that there needs to be a breaking down of the identities or the vision of what a respectable business person is supposed to look like or is supposed to be in an environment. I know for me, I have a lot of tattoos that you can see. And I go into, before I stepped into working for myself, I walked into businesses with my tattoos out. I'm gonna wear this short sleeve collar shirt so you can see exactly like this is me and this is who I'm going to show up as. And that comes from suspending the belief of what a business professional is supposed to look like or how they're supposed to act. Another thing about code switching is the idea that if I show up too Black, if I show up too queer, if I show up too femme, that I'm going to be deemed to be aggressive and you are going to be intimidated. And now you have to walk around eggshells around me. And then the idea then becomes that I need to change. I can't show up this way, when in actual reality, your feelings are your problem. So it becomes more of putting personal responsibility onto the other people in those workspaces to, again, to let go of what they view a professional identity or professional person to look like or to be like. This also goes in terms of education, what's on your resume, the experiences that you've had. There's one thing to say that if I can't be a therapist without a master's degree, but also all of the other things, all the other extracurriculars that I've done are those other intersecting points of my professional identity that's going to make me that better person. So it becomes a thing of privilege, which again is respectability politics. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's if you have the funds to get in to know those things. There's different ways to acquire knowledge as opposed to being in a college setting. But, you know, people learn a lot, especially people with minority identities are extremely resilient and find the way to gather the knowledge that they need to be knowledgeable people in these spaces. And they don't even get in the door because they don't have the university of such and such on their resumes. So creating an environment where people don't feel the need to code switch means creating an environment that is completely different from what has the messages that have been put out about what it means to be a business professional or what it means to exist in a professional capacity in a given environment.
Nice. Meryl, you want to jump in?
Yes, I agree with all of that. And I wanted to add, if I look at my resume is so intentional in the way it looks. And it actually disgusts me because because I have had to, the schools that I've gone to, and the experiences that I've had have been very calculated. And I've been very privileged to have those sort of things. And a lot of it actually comes down to my name, if I'm being real. My name looks...
I could agree with that.
Yes, exactly. My name looks white, so that automatically puts my foot in the door. And so, yeah, I've even had, I had a phone interview one time with somebody who, it was a Black man actually, and he had never seen me or whatever. And he was, it was for a research position working with Caribbean folk and some, I can't remember exactly what it was. So it was some medical thing. And at the end of the interview, he was like, so you're going to have to work with Black people, right? And I was like, well, actually, I am.
You can handle that.
Yes, I have this voice. And yes, at that time, I could speak Italian. But he was just very confused. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
So I've had experiences like that, and I've had experiences where I've walked into an interview and I am not what they're expecting. So all that to say is that in terms of hiring specifically, there are a lot of implicit biases that go into that. So by having if my name looked Black on paper, my life would be different. If I had a different speaking voice, I would have a lot of different experiences with things. And so with that and understanding that has given me the privileges that I have had, I have worked with a lot of people who have not had that and have been turned down. And while they haven't had the education level that is required, they do have the knowledge. And it's so easy to overlook it, like Shanae was saying. It's just, there's no respect of personal experience. And so just trying to break those stuff down and being aware of one's own implicit bias, even when it's just looking at a resume, having conversations about identity in the workplace, having affinity groups. So, that means groups of people who meet together who identify with a particular thing. That is all. And also seeking feedback from those groups is also helpful. Because the thing is if you don't have a whole lot of diversity in your space already, then, the one
There's usually a reason for that.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. And then like the one brown person in the room is not going to stand up to a whole bunch of white people and say, this is what you're doing wrong, or this is like not how I would like to be addressed. And so creating groups and having people come together and talk about those things, and then come to the majority folks and speaking their piece as a group is really powerful. Because as Black folk, especially, we are taught to not speak up, not, not, yep, not really
that boundary.
And things like that. And, I definitely ascribed to that not that long ago. And it's part of the reason why I, struggle today and why I'm so tired, because I let that go on for too long. But that was because I didn't have the support. So also with that, I would say, listen. Don't question anybody's experiences. Don't question it. Just listen to it and validate it and say, wow, that was a lot, like that, wow, what can we do to make it better? Is there anything that we can do to make it better? And if there isn't, and just listening was all they wanted, just leave it at that. So that's.
I like that, because sometimes all you need is someone to listen to you. You don't even want an answer. You just want to get it off your chest, out your head, and just like, okay. And because you most likely already have your answer, you just need to get it out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Miss Amara. And you have an answer for Jordan?
Sorry, searching for unmute. I agree completely with creating a forum like this. I love affinity groups. Anything that will allow employers to have groups of people who are like-minded, who believe in the same thing, who may or may not look the same, and then creating a forum for them to talk and to create feedback, and to have something like this where people can just sit down and talk and share. Whenever I have shared a personal experience in a group, and I hear other experiences that are nothing like mine, it can be jarring. You're like, good grief, what is going on? But if you have everybody agree to come into the forum, to listen to what other people are saying, and to figure out how you can work together to create an environment where you create value for every single person, I think that's what employers really can do. And then if you are able to partner with your employees, with your teams, then you can create an environment where everyone can thrive. And in that thriving environment, you bring in new people. If you are able and open to the person who may not necessarily have the education, to the person who doesn't necessarily 100 look right or look like you would like for them to look like. But if you are open to a meeting of the minds of ideas for whatever your business is, whatever product you're selling, whatever you're trying to assist, whatever you're trying to do, that person may have the key to reach an entire new demographic of people. And so you need to seek people out who are different, who have a different voice, who look different from you, who you might be intimidated by, who might just be that quiet person in the corner. But if you can create an environment for them to actually share their ideas, that's what will really allow your business to grow.
I love that. Yeah, that's really what it's all about. The antidote. We had a class this morning, and that's exactly what the class was about: white supremacy, and the results was the antidote was exactly what you were saying: creating a space that's not so exclusional, where we think we're perfectionists and we don't allow each other to make mistakes. I'm sorry.
And in life, human nature, no matter who you are, you make mistakes. However, mistakes are deemed differently according to who you are.
And I would also say it needs to be a safe place. That's where I think the challenge comes to the employer, and that depends on the different environment. It has got to be a safe place for people to share. And when you have a safe place and you have diversity, you got to create space for people. So if somebody cusses, okay, welcome that. If somebody speaks a different language, you have to welcome that. You have to have a safe place where you're not going to take what somebody says and then use that against them later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
however you create that, I don't necessarily know. It's different for everybody. You can have somebody just on a microphone. You can have a recording where you can hear people's voices. You can't necessarily make out who's talking. You can have a third party come in and interview people and create a report, but it's gotta be safe. And if your employees know that it's safe, they'll tell you the truth.
That is true.
That's where you get those honest conversations from.
Yes, and with no problem, and great workers or great employees or great partnerships, because it's a safe place. Yes, awesome. So, we have at least till 5:30, and then we're going to open up the floor for just questions, conversation, open conversation with anyone who wants to ask the ladies any questions. You can unmute your mic. So, with that being said, Amara, do you have anything that you would like to share with this audience that you have going on with Dress for Success?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, we have so much going on. We were really grateful through COVID that we were able to pivot our services and take everything virtual to continue to provide women with what they need to get jobs and to keep them. So we have developed success bags. You can come to our door, do a curbside pickup of professional attire, jewelry, shoes, everything that you need, virtual career coaching, as well as our employment retention program, which is really our safe space. That I love, because at the PWG, we can work together to facilitate problems that might occur. So if somebody has a question, if somebody's having a situation, they can bring it to our group, and we have a strong sense of community so that we can help each other. And it's not just staff, but it's also peer-to-peer. Also, next month, we will be promoting our virtual fundraising event. It is our fall fashion event. We have this every year. And so we have women who are in our programs, and we have them who are modeling clothing that has been donated to us and telling their stories and really talking about their before and kind of their after, who they are and what they feel now, and the successes and the challenges that they have. And so that's going to be October 22nd. And we're really excited about that. We are shooting our video outside the Pepsi Center because nobody would let us in. So we are shooting outside and thrilled about that. So I encourage everyone to watch.
Can you please put that information in the chat box as well? And Meryl, do you have anything coming up?
Not super soon. Well, actually, next month. What Rainbow Alley specifically is doing is having our queer prom, which has been much delayed. It's been delayed since May or so, something like that. I can't even remember. I don't know what date it is. So so that's something that we're gonna have. We're gonna do it virtually, of course. Mostly virtually. We're gonna have like a drive-through component. And the theme is Candyland, so we're probably gonna have a lot of candy and give it to folks as they go.
What's the date for that one?
It's October 24th.
October 24th. Awesome. Can you please put that information as well in the chat box?
Yes.
And Shanae, do you have anything coming up?
Sure. So honestly, my sexuality education and consultation business is launching comprehensive sex positive homeschool sexuality education. The high school age is what is launching first. So I would encourage you to get onto my newsletter. My goal is to put it out Thanksgiving break. is when we would like to launch the initial one. All of I believe there's 12 modules, and each module comes with a grown-up module. So for the trusted adult in this young person's life, there'll be a little bit of education and a little bit of kind of dialogue openers and ways to help those grown-ups feel comfortable being the person that this young person can go to surrounding questions around sex and sexualities. With that CompSex Ed program, I'm also doing Hot Topic Fridays. So every Friday after the program launches, young people, there'll be 2 hot topics. There'll be one for young people and one for the trusted grownups. They'll be able to log on and ask me questions about what they're learning in the modules or about what's coming up for them, especially for grownups in particular, about how to have these conversations, mitigating a lot of anxiety and stress that comes with raising a sex-positive child and having a comprehensive sexuality education platform. So you can go to honestlynae.com and get on the newsletter as soon as those programs start rolling out. There's also webinars that I have on there and other educational resources on my website that are all sex positive, pleasure based for people to gather information that way. My therapy services, my private practice is open and accepting new clients. So you can definitely go to that website if you're interested in services. I provide therapy and coaching services, and I also do individual and group counseling to try to help with a lot of the financial strain that's happening out in the world. I am a clinician, so I run the gambit of mental health, everything from anxiety to depression, but I do work specifically in sex and sexuality, so people who may have experienced sexual trauma, people who are navigating their sexuality or embracing it, but and people who are dealing with the trauma of today. Sex and trauma is kind of like my bread and butter. And then the Chrysalis House is having an event this Saturday at Cheeseman Park, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's called Chrysalis the Park. It's broken up into a couple different sections. So there's joy in the park. We're encouraging people to bring things that bring them joy, their hula hoops, their skateboards, their roller skates, their chalk. Come on out and just be in community. We host a monthly munch, and a munch is a non-sexual space for kinky and kink-interested people to come together. Our theme this month is intimacy, and we're going to be talking about the different forms of intimacy and how we're able to create and maintain intimacy during the pandemic and online, and when we're not able to, have touch and have hugs, how are we able to expand our capacity for intimacy? We will also be having a spades tournament and tutorial. That is our fundraiser for the month. So we always like to say that teaching Black people how to play spades is healing the community work. But if you're interested in playing spades, or if you know how to play spades, you can come on out. We will teach you how to play. You can join the tournament. And then we also are doing our kind of clothing and resources drive for winter. We're looking for warm clothes, coats. We have a lot of food in our pantry, so we're always looking for more non-perishables. I also like to tell people we have a lot of vegan food, so if you know people who are vegan or vegetarian and need those resources, Nooch is our homie. They give us a lot of things, so that way we can give out to others. But it is our clothing resource drive, so please bring us non-perishables, please bring us warm clothes, because as the weather starts shifting, people are going to start needing new resources. We've been really lucky with the Chrysalis House to have so much support from community, and we've been able to clothe and feed. I want to say we've had maybe like 300 one-timer people, and the people who are looking for long-term services, we have about 25 people who we've seen 3 times. We have mental health scholarships, so if you would like to contribute to that, so that way you can pay for individual or group therapy coaching sessions from myself or one of our other mental health partners. All of that is active, and I'll put those 3 websites down in the chat. If you follow us on our social media, that's a really good way to get a hold of us as well.
Thank you. Before we go to us, do we have any questions before we totally get all wrapped up, Deborah?
Yes.
Deborah? Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So I think Amy had a question in here. Amy, it might be easiest to have you synthesize what you said for the specific question. And I also want to just let people know that we can compile the resources and upcoming events that our panelists have been kind enough to share with us, and share them out with everybody after the event as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Amy, I don't know if you're on, but essentially your question is.
Yes. Can you guys hear me? I can ask my question.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. So my question is, I guess, sort of similar to Jordan's. He was looking for a way to kind of put that to small businesses. And I think that we're at a place right now, I'm just thinking about political involvement, where we can help our neighbors and people around us understand what's really going on as far as systemic racism just being a very obvious and still being denied. And I would like to know if there are organizations, have there been anything that's been formed to kind of step up into this time and really, like, as we transition to a new presidential term, how can we mandate honest education to every single citizen, and maybe even update? I would preferably like to see something where we actually require an update of people who are out of school to get that truthful history, so that we can all be on the same page and not spinning our wheels, constantly trying to point out the history that people are so keen to deny. And so my question is basically around that educational piece. Like, is there movement going on? Is there something we can join as small businesses? Can we create a group to force that culture to shift? That's my question.
I think that's a great idea, to create a group, because as Amara said earlier, you need each individual's experience in order to understand the whole circle. And just one side of the conversation is not the whole thing. It's not just black and white. It's a lot of things in between it that causes the problem. So I think that would be great. However,
Amy, that's a great question, and that's one of the things that we're addressing is education and our process of building health equity in the community. That's one of the three things that have come up that's most important. Health, education, and economics or finance. Those are the three things that are really going to help, from what the information we've compiled, Black people move forward. We are actually on the equity board at East High School, and we have an announcement at the end of this panel discussion about ways to actually engage and help do something about that. So stay tuned, because we're going to be giving you an opportunity later to engage in an opportunity to do something about education.
However, ladies, if you have any answers for her with her statement and question, we have about maybe 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a loaded question, because achieving some kind of mandated for truthful education implies that there is some kind of cultural agreement on historically accurate, medically accurate, inclusive education is going to be a value, and it's not. So I think that it really requires a societal cultural shift before we can even start to have the conversation of putting in the pillars to grow that. Things that came to mind is, like, you can, go to your young human school board and demand better education. Other things that came to mind is, you can take the responsibility to bring that truthful education to your own communities, to your own household, to your own young peoples, and kind of hope that it spreads in a sense. That's definitely the technique that I have been using as an educator, is that, the curriculums that are out are not always inclusive, are not always sex positive are not always pleasure based. So I, create that environment for me to be able to put that education out there, and those that want it will take it, and those that don't want it are going to do, what they're going to do. But it feels like a very, very loaded question where several other things would need to be in place before that was even a tangible fantasy, I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understandable. Amara, do you
I agree. Oh, I agree completely. That you're talking about taking down systems, which can be done, but there's a lot that has to be done before you can start to take down systems. I agree the power is in the individual. If you as an individual are hungry for it and you have influence over anyone, your children, your family, your cousins, your peeps, whoever, then make it part of your circle's culture that you're going to explore these things. Do the research. It's easy to do the research to find out different people's experiences that they are having historically as well as presently. If you are a business owner, or if you have influence in a business, you can start to bring in programs and education to feed the curiosity of your people. I have found that a lot of people are very curious about this. They're curious about the truth. They want to know. They know something is wrong, but they may not know what. And they don't understand all of the details, and they don't understand the historical. And so they don't know where to go. They're also almost ashamed that they don't know. And so we need to create a space for them to find out. If you are curious, if you want to know, then there's plenty of information for you to receive out there. If we can put good information out there, if there's good resources. I love the Equity Board. I love putting links to good trainings, to good education. Now that we are all virtual and, tied to our computers, we can tie into a lot of different educations. So you don't have to just send your kids to school and give what they're teaching them. You can take some ownership in that and go beyond that. And you can really have control over what people are taking in and teach them how to differentiate. Okay, you're teaching me this, but what's the real truth? Let me figure this out. So you're teaching people how to think with what you're receiving versus what you're discovering on your own.
Nice. Meryl? If you have anything for that question?
I don't have anything to add. Sorry.
It's okay.
Puppy hookups and is like all over the place.
That's all right. I got you, Meryl.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you all. I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was definitely a great answer. So finally, we're here. We do have an announcement to make ourselves, and I'll give the floor to Sharon so she can make that announcement. And I also included the link in the chat already.
So we do have a call to action. We want to thank you, ladies, you panelists, so much. We want to thank Good Business Colorado. We want to thank everybody that's joined. So our call to action is the pledge. And the pledge is Healthy Denver Inc.'s doing a 12-month pledge to build equity in the community. And every month we're going to work with different organizations to help do that. And we're going to offer you ladies a month slot. Looks like you've already picked out your months, where we engage the community in helping to support you and what you're doing. So all month long, we'll promote you and help you and support you and all that and all that you're doing. But we're going to do that for 12 months. That will give our allies and people that are curious an opportunity to work with the organizations that we're working with and the people in the community to help engage. You can volunteer, you can donate money, you can donate time, you can donate skills. Rebecca, I think, has the link in the box. But we want to make sure we thank you ladies for engaging in this conversation and being open and honest and helping to move the needle forward. And we're going to take the next step of this call to action, and we're going to take it a step further. We're going to keep working together. We're going to keep working with the community and in the community to make a difference together.
Yes. And thank you very much so much for always being there and willing to work with us. And as Sharon said, just having these conversations is just helping change the mindset, because it's education. All it is education. Now, what you do with education is up to you. And that's what we want to do, is just continue educating and helping and growing and just bringing happy and love to the community. Once again, thank you, Good Business Colorado, for allowing us and helping us togetherness, working together and doing this final colorful conversation panel. This is a third of a series of 3. However, we will be continue doing workshops throughout the year with the same kind of conversation. So look out for that as well. As Sharon said, I put the pledge in the box. So if you want to take the pledge, it will be awesome. Even just open it up, check it, see what it's about. If you would like to take the pledge, it'll be in the chat box. So with that being said, if anyone wants to just unmute their mic and say anything, this open floor for the next few minutes. Okay. Well,
can I say something?
Of course.
This is Jordan. Well, first of all, I didn't want to be like the first person to talk. I hate being that, but just want to thank you all for making the time and space to do this. I really appreciate it. A special thank you to Meryl. I went to Rainbow Alley when I was a teenager, and it meant so much in my life as a young gay person. And so I just really appreciate the work that you do over there. And then the last thing is I put into the chat box to Amy Ross's question about like the teaching of true history in Colorado. There was a bill passed in 2019 to really make the education that people receive around American history and civics and government much more accurate in terms of folks of minority groups and queer people. So check out that bill and see if maybe that's a little bit of kind of what you were thinking. But thank you.
And also, Jordan, if you'd like to say a little bit about what Good Business Colorado is all about, therefore they will understand why you know that bill.
And that's why we love
Sure.
working with you guys.
Well, thank you for that space. Yeah, so Good Business Colorado is a coalition of just around 300 business owners throughout the state. And what we do is we engage our members in public policy conversations that impact our communities and our businesses, specifically in the area of creating a prosperous economy, equitable communities, and a sustainable environment. If folks do want to learn more, feel free to reach out to me or Deborah, our executive director, or check out our website, goodbusinesscolorado.org.
Definitely, can you please add that in the box as well? Well,
And that's one of the things I really like. Give you guys a shout out about Good Business Colorado, because as a small business, as a small nonprofit, it's limited. We have a limited amount of people, and Good Business Colorado helps us keep up with policy and bills and what's going on in the city, and engage with Small Business Association so that we can stay on top of our game. So we really appreciate you helping us keep it together.
and our voices get to be heard because we speak to them one-on-one about the different bills. So we actually go to the courthouse if we need to. We haven't been yet, but we go out. We know some individuals who have been to the courthouse just because it's to help pass those bills. So it's really important what you guys are doing in the community, and
we appreciate you.
Yes. So if no one has no other comments, nothing else, we so appreciate you all for being here today.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Check out some of the programs we're doing. We're actively engaged in the community, trying to do everything we can to help and embrace a healthy life and a healthy lifestyle. And we want to let you guys know we appreciate you. We appreciate the allies and the opportunity. And we love working with our partners on the panel. And we look forward to doing more good stuff together out there in the community.
Yes, and check us out at healthydenverinc.com, and look out for the email, which this whole session would be attached to the email as well. So you could revisit, enjoy the conversation, and continue educating. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Don't forget to register to vote.
Oh, yes, please do. Please, please, please.
So much. Have a good one.
Oh,
Hey, Deborah.
Thank you, guys.
bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, Sally.
Thanks,
Nice
Dawn.
to meet you. Hey,
Thank
Karen.
you, Sally.
Hey,
Look
Karen.
forward to hearing
Yay.
more opportunities.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
everyone. Thanks so much.
Right, thank you.
Thank you,
Confetti.
I just got hit in the head.
Bye-bye.
See you later.